So, you might have seen a video of the Welsh Refugee Council employing schoolgirls in Wales to do an advert for accessing services for quote unquote asylum seekers. Now, they don't distinguish whether or not these are the legal kind from women and children from Afghanistan and Ukraine.
This video in particular, is it?
Yes, I actually feel a bit unsettling having to show it because, of course, it's not these poor girls' fault. They don't
it's
know
not their fault.
what they're doing, but they are being conscripted into an enterprise to flood their country with men of, should we say, disreputable intent, most likely?
Well, I mean, you have no idea. That's the point.
Yeah.
We don't know who these people are. Why would a bunch of people just illegally come to a foreign country, especially when we know they're coming from countries that aren't at war?
Yes.
They must be adventurers in some way. And I mean, we've seen in previous podcasts plenty of the TikToks that they put out telling us of their intent. So
there was quite literally about 2 years ago, Albanian channel crossers that were marketing for multiple thousands the ability to get you from Albania to then Belgium to then to France and then to cross the channel. And then by the evening, you'd be a Deliveroo driver or hold up in a hotel with cash to hand, mainly from the law-abiding, tax-paying population of Britain, because we're all extorted to pay for that luxury. So
isn't it like 3 billion a year or something?
It's upwards of 6 million a day now.
Yeah.
I think that figure has shifted slightly because I think about 1.8 million was being allocated to Ukraine and Afghanistan and Hong Kong, because those arrivals have dropped significantly in the last year of net migration. But the number of new asylum applicants that keep coming in every year, I think it was something like 38,000 last year that crossed the channel. Crossings were down because of weather events, not because the government actually did anything about it. So the numbers will be fudged. It's probably about 6 million a day.
Yeah. So the point is, it's literally billions a year.
Yeah. We could just not let them in.
Yeah. We could just drop them back on the shores of France.
Yeah.
And the French could just drop them back on the shores of Africa.
Yes.
And the Libyans could just drop them back into the interior.
Yeah, but they're castrating them instead. Thanks, Hillary Clinton.
Jesus, all right.
Well, it's true.
Is it?
The open air slave markets in Libya.
Well, I realized, I didn't realize they were castrating.
Yes. Yes, yeah, it's quite dark stuff, yeah, exactly. So I'm really glad we instigated regime change there. Now, trying to be charitable, if this Welsh refugee charity was only servicing the women that are staying here temporarily...
If it was the Ukrainian women,
exactly,
that would make perfect sense.
If it was the Hong Kongers that the British government had allowed to be displaced from their homeland by the Chinese Communist Party, and we were engaging in efforts to actually return them, fair enough. But I still wouldn't be in favour of conscripting schoolgirls to do this because they should not be paraded on the internet.
It's a bit weird.
It's very creepy. But I thought we'd go into the background, just beyond the creepiness, of who exactly is doing this. As I mentioned, it's the Welsh Refugee Council, and they do have a website. And
it is.
They have a story. And now we do have a
sorry to interrupt. Just look at this. The Welsh Refugee Council was founded the same day Nelson Mandela walked out of prison.
And he should never have done so because he was a terrorist.
I'm still in the parallel universe where Nelson Mandela died in prison. I can't get over the fact that he didn't.
Yeah, it's possible to be both against apartheid and also against a man who bombed a train and killed innocent people.
Yeah, he's literally a terrorist. I don't know.
Yeah, not great.
But that's their opening statement. Look, we were founded the same day Nelson Mandela walked out of prison. Yeah, how's South Africa doing right now?
I'm sure Ross Kemp has some thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Per recent videos.
Yeah, let's not even think about it. It's atrocious.
Oh, we'll be getting onto something similar later.
Oh, God.
Sorry about that.
Sorry to interrupt the video, but I thought I'd announce that we have a new line of merch. This is our aesthetics collection. So I was thinking that in the face of AI art debasing the very concept of art, actually we'd do something quite positive. So we commissioned a series of paintings that were actually really beautiful and could be something that we could present outside of politics. So, for example, we have this magnificent painting of a ship weathering a storm, which I thought was just really nice. And we have, of course, a glorious, sort of surrealist, giant white tiger drinking from a lake. But also there are other things that are just kind of interesting, such as the chap lost in cyberspace, or something that I thought might, in time for Christmas, make a great present for your mum or something like that. A beautiful cat lounging on some clouds. Basically, we wanted to do some stuff that wasn't just political, So things that were just nice and beautiful and interesting, because that's also a part of the world we want to curate. So you can go over to shop.lotuses.com. Buying the merch is a really great way of supporting us and means that we can live past demonetization. And I'm sure they make great gifts for the folks as well.
I just want to lay it out for the audience who don't already know. In the UK, we have, much like in Washington in the States, a sort of permanently encrusted set of barnacles on the SS Britannia. And this is our NGO bureaucracy. This is the grievance industrial complex that continually props up marginalized or oppressed peoples, does fundraising efforts, and then spaffs most of it away on salaries.
So that spends their time exploiting human rights legislation.
Yes, and also does a lot of their time doing influencing and awareness work. And this is those guys' words, not mine, which explains why they're getting schoolgirls in social media videos. But just to go through a little bit of their story on their homepage, as you say, founded on the same day Nelson Mandela walked out of prison in 1990s, the founders were a group of refugees.
A group of foreigners just rocked up and like, yeah, we need more of us.
Literally working in cahoots with, as they say, their politicians, so fifth columnists, representatives from the refugee communities. So wouldn't they just also be refugees?
Yeah.
It's like the mouth of Sauron.
But what's a refugee community? Like,
they all don't like each other, and technically they would all be in competition for the same resources, so you might think that...
They're not a community, they're a class.
Yes.
Anyway.
That's better framing. Voluntary organisations and statutory bodies. And so in 1992, it received a £30,000 grant from the Home Office.
That's the Conservatives.
It is. It's John Major's government.
Yeah.
Indistinguishable from Labour, turns
yes.
out. Now,
slightly more to the left, actually.
Again, if we're being charitable, and this is in the post-war order, the reason the post-war refugee legislation by the United Nations, by the ECHR was set up, was because of post-war displaced Europeans and Jews.
Yeah.
So they had to deal with that issue. In the 90s, that sort of dead hand of the 20th century was still hanging over it. So they weren't dealing with the same cohort of refugee as we are now, which are the chancellors from Somalia and North Africa.
Yeah, we're not taking polls in.
Yes. So even though John Major and his government were a bunch of treacherous wets, they weren't quite to the scale as we're seeing with the current Conservative Party and the Labour Party.
Yeah, I mean, just a quick thing as well. Back in 1992, it was something like 7% of the country was non-native in their extraction. You know? So they could, even if, they, like from Pakistan or India or something, they'd have been here 30 years already. So it's like, okay, they're born and raised here, basically. And it's a very, very small percentage. So you can understand that in 1992, immigration really wasn't that big a deal of an issue.
It wasn't as salient. There were, the Conservatives were campaigning under Margaret Thatcher, saying that it would flood the country with a bunch of foreigners.
Yeah.
And that was an election winner and turned out to be very prescient. But the numbers and scale just weren't as immense
anything.
At the time.
And £30,000, even in 1992, is quite a modest amount of money, to be fair.
Yes. So in 2014, the Welsh government decided to give them even more funding. They began to do advocacy and influencing efforts. So that just translates to state-funded propaganda on behalf of refugee interest groups.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that explains where they got all the money to go into primary schools and get girls to do these sort of hostage videos promoting that immigrants can claim benefits and to say random Welsh phrases. Because that's what they were saying. They were saying you have the ability to access work programs, direct subsidies, housing, and the like. Oh, I don't get to do that.
No.
I'll lose my job tomorrow. I won't be up on top of the housing list.
No.
Again, why do 48% of all social housing in London, one of the most expensive places to live in the world, go to random foreigners?
Yeah, you won't get that.
Yeah, don't have an answer for that, except that it's probably because of these guys' work and the like. So in 2018...
Sorry, it's just it's so sinister, man. It's so sinister. Because, you're a 25-year-old man from Africa, like somewhere in the Congo or something, and you see a video from the Welsh. They're literally dangling a 14-year-old girl in front of you and saying, we're going to give you all these resources. You'd be like, what's wrong with these people?
I mean, the thing is, the girls weren't even that old as well.
I don't know how old
they were. Like primary school girls.
No, they weren't. Well, they looked like they were 12 or something.
They were very young.
I mean, yeah.
By the looks of it.
Obviously. But I don't know. However old the girls were, I don't know how old they were. But here's some young girls who are just come over here. It's like, that looks sinister.
Yeah, what are you marketing? Are you marketing the benefits? Are you marketing the girls?
But you're marketing both, whether you realize it or not.
Yes, but which one comes primary in the minds of the men that you're marketing it to?
Again, they think both. They think they're getting both. And it's just, and again, It's the Victoria Derbyshire interviewing the guy from not Somalia, it was like Ghana or something, where she's like, "Oh, you must have been really fleeing persecution to get on that boat." He's like, "No, I came from money." And she's just like, has no idea because she's a 6-year-old woman and she doesn't understand 21-year-old men from a foreign continent, and this is what they obviously don't understand either.
Well, I was asked onto a France 24 debate like 2 years ago about channel crossings, and they were interviewing an Afghan guy who was in the Calais migrant camps, and they were saying, "Oh, why are you claiming asylum?" He said, "Because I'm a photographer and I want to come over for COP26 to photograph that giant Syrian puppet, Little Amal, and they won't let me. And they won't let me because they're racist." We have cameras. There's no entitlement for you to be here.
But also, like, they don't understand what men will risk their lives for.
Yes.
They do not understand what men will risk their lives for because they're utterly risk averse.
Yeah.
Whereas young men are just not.
It's not for fear, it's for adventure.
Yeah, it's totally.
And unfortunately, it looks like these girls are being offered up as the spoils of war. And it's not like we don't have precedent for that, which I'll get onto in a bit. But this is in 2018. So in 2018, the council boasts about making £9,570 in hardship payments thanks to donations, and delivered hate crime awareness workshops of asylum seekers and refugees in the Gwent area to help them better understand how to identify and report hate crime. So, government's taxing you, giving you money to random foreigners that they don't have to vet the backgrounds of, and then they're also encouraging said foreigners to, if you complain about it online or in the street, report you to the police.
Yeah, they're giving the foreigners a power over the natives.
Yes. So they're giving them direct subsidies, direct provisions, and then privileges to say that you can't even complain about this.
Yeah. I mean, that's what would have happened in previous eras when a conquering army took over a country.
Yeah, quite. And then in 2022, they created our award-winning campaign film denouncing the Nationality and Borders Act. So they're getting subsidized to make informational films.
Anti-government propaganda.
Yeah. Which it seems that the Conservative Party increasingly agree with, which is quite frustrating. They also had on their website, and I didn't bring this up, but an advice for unaccompanied children page.
Yeah, I bet that was read by a lot of children.
It's scrubbed. It's gone.
Oh, really?
It's gone. Error 404.
Really? That's interesting. Well, I mean, there weren't any unaccompanied children.
You conspiracy theorists. It just so happens that they're upwards of 92% white male and...
well, they weren't
male,
white
sorry.
male,
the Albanians were. But,
yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, but they were upwards of 90% male. But there you go. Let's look at the funding partner. So who's actually giving them money? So it's not just the Home Office, not just the Welsh Government. It turns out, as we're going to go down a bit, they have a really long website.
Comic Relief.
Yeah, so BBC. BBC Children Needing Comic Relief.
Yeah.
The National Lottery. The Postcode Lottery. The Charitable Foundation. So that's the regulatory board. And Lloyds Bank.
Oh.
So if you're with any of those organisations, I suggest withdrawing your donations or your business rather rapidly. Also, it turns out that playing these lotteries, I mean, the odds of winning these lotteries are infinitesimally small.
Yeah.
But the odds,
and when you win, it'll ruin your life, just so you know.
Well, yeah, sure. And also, but the odds of funding essentially a slush fund that is then going to be spent on flooding your country with foreigners who hate you, and then you're paying twice to house them at your expense, that's guaranteed. So... maybe don't play the lottery because you will get screwed both ways. Now, the reason this is particularly egregious to market the young girls is this. A little while ago, we broke this story. GB News ended up covering it as well because I forwarded them some of the information. But there were a bunch of boat migrants using Instagram pages marketing specifically to North Africans, showing videos alongside young men breaking into the country and young men asking European women on dates and young men holding pallets of cash. Just videos of young white British girls drunk, having a laugh on a night out, being filmed from strange far angles.
Yeah.
So it was like marketing again. Young women as the spoils of war.
Yeah. This is what you can get if you can break into the West.
Yes. The Home Office were actually aware of this.
Oh, good.
They did nothing.
Of course they did.
Yeah. So it's almost like they want it to continue, which is just a bit frustrating.
Well, the Home Office definitely does, because the Home Office is staffed by a bunch of woke people and a bunch of foreigners.
And also, other than a couple
of
Remainers. Yes, and a few Home Secretaries have made mouth noises as to wanting to deal with the problem. And I think Suella Braverman genuinely did want to deal with the problem. She was just stonewalled.
Apparently, she was really cringing in front of them. Apparently, when she went into the meetings, she was very sort of like, and very demure and weak in front of them. Unlike Priti Patel, who like bullied one out of his job.
Yes.
You know, Suella Braverman apparently didn't do that.
I think she was trying to reason with them because, again,
I imagine so.
I've briefly encountered Suella, and she does seem on side, if not particularly competent, like lots of politicians.
Yeah, but I want, Asian woman to dominate them.
I totally agree. The problem is now we actually have a Home Secretary who's totally in cahoots and just lying all the time. And we'll get onto that slightly later. It's also particularly egregious because of this story that was reopened recently, and I apologize for anyone who was eating their lunch or something. This was one of the worst examples of the grooming gang scandal. I mention it because the case has just been reopened as of last year. But this was a girl who, age 14, this is now 20 years ago, went missing, was most likely involved with the grooming gangs and being plied with alcohol and money for sex with older men in Blackpool. And her body was never found because there were two kebab shop workers who had, quote unquote, joked about mincing her body up into kebab meat and selling it, and also putting her in the grouting of the kebab shop in the tiles. Interestingly, the jury couldn't reach a verdict in that case. And then during the retrial, it was thrown out because they had complaints over the way that Lancashire Constabulary gathered the evidence.
Right, okay.
So thrown out on a procedural technicality. The police have since reopened it because they now think, oh, this was obviously a product of the grooming gangs, wasn't it?
I hate how this country's being run.
Well, yeah, but I mention it because I just want to say, I mean, if you look at the video of these girls, right? So I'm just going to replay and mute it. Of these two girls who are definitely in a primary school, I think it's fair to say.
Probably about 8 or 9.
Yeah. Which of these is an acceptable casualty to be ground into kebab meat until mass immigration works?
Obviously none of them.
Yeah, that's what we think. Yeah. But clearly there's absolutely...
It's not a very controversial opinion.
No, it's not very far right to say I would like these girls to live happy lives unmolested. But it turns out...
That's far right.
Yeah, it turns out that the government seem to at least be accepting of that reality. Because they've done nothing about it. And they continue to do nothing about it. And they know what it happens.
If protecting children isn't a good enough goal, what is?
Yeah.
What do they want?
Why would you justify having a civilization and law if it fails to stop children being minced into kebab meat?
It's literally what's happened. Literally what we're talking about.
Yeah. So you've actually done some extensive coverage of the grooming gang scandal.
I have indeed.
The website. It's worth going and visiting. This is behind the paywall. £5 a month. It's a fantastic
how
resource.
We keep the lights on and we do good work.
Yeah, and unfortunately we have to bring this news to you because it's just happening in the country. But I thought I'd pull up a few stats about the grooming gangs, particularly from Charlie Peters reporting, who's done some great work on GB News on this. So in Rotherham, turns out that the majority of the perpetrators of the 1,400 recorded rapes of girls were members of the local Pakistani community. Yep. That was only 3% of the population.
Yeah.
So 3% of the population responsible for 1,400 rapes. Okay. So then the Casey report came out and started talking about the grooming gangs. The references when it was published to Pakistani taxi drivers, specifically in Rotherham and Rochdale, were changed to, quote, men of a certain ethnicity engaged in a particular occupation.
Oh, yeah.
Mainly kebab shop workers, I'm sure.
Yep.
So speaking of the traitors, in 2018, the Home Office found that 30% of the sexual abusers were white and 28% were Asian. And obviously this was reported as white men responsible for most sexual assaults in Britain.
Which is a technically true thing.
In the majority white country, yes. Yeah. But if we go to the per capita, which is the actual statistic that matters.
I don't understand per capita. Just pushing my head up the hill.
Yeah, you need to change the batteries in your smoke alarm.
Yeah, I do.
So this is 28% of the Asian rapists compared to the 85% of the white population, but only 8% of the Asian population. Yeah. And also that's Asian speaking specifically, it's not the Japanese that are committing these. No. It's not the Sikh Indians majority. It's mainly Pakistani Muslims.
Yeah.
So
and Bangladeshi.
Yes. And then there was another paper as well. They found that 1 in every 2,200 Muslim men in England and Wales since 1997 and 2017 have been prosecuted for grooming. 1 in every 2,200. So that's 1 in every 1,700 Pakistanis, 1 in 280 Muslim males over 16 in Rochdale were prosecuted, 1 in 126 in Telford, and 1 in 73 in Rotherham.
Jesus.
Yeah. And again, how many casualties?
Again, that's prosecuted.
Yes.
Like that's not that like we're talking about the ringleaders, we're not talking about the customers.
Yeah, we're not talking about everyone that wasn't caught.
Yeah, because what they do, for anyone who doesn't know, is they groom women into essentially they groom girls into essentially being prostitutes. And then these girls will get raped dozens of times a night. These guys will make money out of it. They'll be drugged up. They'll be given alcohol. And then they just have this perpetual cycle of abuse.
Yeah. And then so to reiterate, what's being advertised here? Is it the benefits?
Yeah. I mean, I guess the main point that someone can make is, well, the grooming gangs aren't refugees, which is true.
No, but
they were let in legally.
Manchester Arena bomber was,
Yeah.
Stabber was, the taxi cab bomber was. So excuse me if I don't think that the same men from the same place with the same ideology.
I don't think there's a hard distinction between them for some reason. Yeah.
I don't think coming in through the border or breaking into the country makes difference whether or not they want to rape young girls. And frankly, and this is purely anecdotal, but the amount of times we have been past asylum centers for these young men and they have leered at young girls.
Oh, yeah.
So I know of a local school near me, and there are a number of, I assume, legal Deliveroo and Uber Eats and that drivers on mopeds. And because they're positioned in the local high street, the school has had lots of complaints from parents and school children saying that these men have propositioned these young 12, 13, 14-year-old girls.
Oh, this is the Lisa Nandy. Refugees welcome, except for here because they're being weirdly pervy on the girls.
Yeah.
And there have been girls who have been raped as well. There have been examples. We've covered this previously.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not an unfounded concern.
Yeah. And so if you weren't even deliberately trying to advertise these young girls to these predatory men, well, you're at least endangering them to such an extent of where you're dangling them in front of them because you don't know their motivation. So I just want to underscore how the government clearly doesn't care about this, because this news coincides with the fact that Rishi Sunak is now touting that the asylum backlog has been cleared.
Oh, so, bravo.
And how he's cleared it is he's just blanket granted 50,000 applications for permanent stay. So that's 50,000 new, creepy, possibly rapey foreign neighbours that you're housing at your expense just because he wanted to get numbers down.
I mean, you literally don't know anything about their backgrounds. You don't know if they've committed crimes. You don't know if they're fleeing criminal prosecution. You don't know anything about them. And you're just like, 50,000, rubber stamp right into the community. Go.
As you once said, the only thing stopping the Home Office from approving more than 4,000 visas a day must just be the physical size of the Home Office at this point. It's just capacity, it's not will. So, as GB News are reporting, Sunak announced his promise to process more than 92,000 claims in the last year had been exceeded, with 112,000 cases cleared last year. Notice, cleared. We'll get onto how he did that in a moment. The total included 77,000 final decisions, with 51,469 asylum claims granted. The record-breaking figure is the highest number since records began in 1984 and smashes the previous high of 33,460 in 2002. Because that's right, I'm a conservative. God. Well, you can't have a backlog if you're just approving them all, can you?
Yeah, there's no backlog if there's literally no funnel that stops them from, that clogs them up. If you just open it completely and just allow it all just to fall through, there's no backlog at all. Problem solved.
Yeah, black guy tapping forehead.jpg. But it turns out that if you go into the actual stats, part of this is because they've just withdrawn or voided 35,000 applications. So that doesn't mean that those people aren't here anymore.
No, they're still here. It's just there's nothing in the books about them.
Yeah. So they've said it's cleared its asylum backlog around summer 2022 as well, which was around 98,000. So they're only counting summer 2022. So they aren't counting in the last year. Yeah. So that means the current backlog is still almost exactly 98,000 because of the amount of people that have come in over the channel and applied for asylum since.
But
so it's static.
But this isn't, like you say, people going home.
Yeah.
This is just now they're just in the country.
Yes.
Forever.
Yes. Yeah. At least before you had the promise that we were going to kick them out eventually. I mean, they weren't going to.
Yeah.
But now they're just.
Yeah. I mean, they have no idea where they are. They don't know anything about these men. They don't really know where they are. And they're just like, what, we're just going to scrap it.
They also have just admitted to losing 17,000 of them.
Oh, brilliant.
Do you want to listen to James Cleverly try and defend this on Good Morning Britain? Because this is the only time Susanna Reid is actually half decent.
But neither of those categories account for these 17,000 claimants, do they? Because you knew that they were either voluntary returns or enforced returns, they wouldn't be missing. These are missing asylum seekers. You have no idea where these people are, whether they're here, there, or anywhere.
So the point is, at any given time, there will be some people that have gone through the process and have stepped out of the process. As I say, with regard to people who are choosing to leave, we don't always track them. We don't have exit controls in the UK, so we don't always know that they have left. But as I say, the number of people that we have returned has increased by 2/3. So ultimately, of course, we will find people that are here illegally, who shouldn't be here, who have no right to be here, and we will return. Them.
The thing is, I mean, you're doing quite a good job of covering up the fact that actually, as Susanna says, you literally have no idea where these 17,000
or
people have
who
gone.
they are.
I mean, you said in your opening
answer,
you said that you think they some of them will have gone back home. Well, you don't know that. None of them could have gone home. You simply don't know.
So the point is that when people try to hide themselves in the economy, and this is not unique to the UK, this happens in countries, developed economies like ours all over the world, whether it's in the US or continental Europe. But what we do is we go looking for them. So our enforcement officials...
How do you lose them in the first place? How do you lose 17,000 applicants? It's a heck of a figure.
If people stop turning up, if people disengage with the process, that's where that figure comes from. But what we do is we go looking for them. We're not passive, we're active. We go looking for them. We go to places where we know there is a risk that people are employed illegally. We do enforcement raids.
I'm just going to stop that there because...
You know those illegal immigrants who broke into your country? All what we're doing is we're just relying on their goodwill to turn up and engage with the state. Otherwise, we have no idea about them, and we just let them wander off in your country forever. And I mean, we go looking for them, but we haven't found any. 17,000 is an army. Like, that is just unreal.
Well, the liberal assimilation pipe dream treats them as if they've come from the void and that they can just be economic integers. So he's presuming that they've just evaporated back into it.
Yeah.
That they're just in a pocket dimension or something.
Yeah. Well, no, it's just they're just the same as everyone else in society. So they've just become a part of the mass.
Yeah.
It's like, no, they're predators.
They're part of the London meat cube.
Yeah, but they're literally predators. Yep. That's why they've come here.
But I want to just emphasize, notice how he kept talking about the process. You could capitalize the T and the P there as if it's some kind of personified entity.
Yeah, I don't care about the process. I don't worship it. But it's also, I don't have faith in it.
You are the decision maker. Or you should be, at least. Because otherwise, what actually is the point of Parliament? Yeah. Because if you can't locate the people that you're meant to be administrating, then what is the point of the managerial state? It's almost like there's this disembodied will hanging over everyone, motivating every institution in the same direction. He's even saying every country's doing it. So
how about this? Why do illegal immigrants have freedom? Why are they free to just walk around?
Yes.
Why is that the case? Yeah. Why are they free to disengage with the government? They should be treated as criminals, first and foremost, and then they can put in their asylum application. Okay, well, you're going to stay in this particular place until we've processed it. Yeah, well, a lot of you came, so it's going to take a while. That sucks. But it's costing the British taxpayer unbelievable money. No, they just give them complete liberty to roam our country and do whatever they want. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
And also, if they commit further crimes while they're here, the police are going to be too busy policing what you say about it online rather than going and addressing the burglaries or the rapes.
Yeah, remember, 95% of all burglaries go uninvestigated, or unconvicted. Yeah. So just don't worry about it.
And as we've seen with the grooming gangs, these people are scarcely caught and ever delivered actual prison sentences.
I mean, burglary is literally legal in Britain, just on the praxis, the proximity, the number that are actually able to be processed. So 5% of burglaries result in a conviction. That is unbelievable.
Yeah. That's being said, we are not qualified to represent you in court. So just
we're not going to
be careful about that. But, shock. So this has led to them being investigated by the statistics watchdog because it turns out they just made up the claim because, of course, they did. So the Conservatives... Again, I don't know who at CCHQ is running their Twitter account. Oh, this has been blocked off. But they've got this really cringeworthy way of putting out graphics that's like the promises made, promises kept, and these dreadful blooming memes. Yeah. So it turns out that the Home Office has actually acknowledged, sorry, I'm just going to have to wrestle the mouse over there. The Home Office has acknowledged that there were still 4,500 complex cases from the period on which a decision has not been made. And they said that there are still 98,000 asylum applications in the backlog, which is an almost static number from the last time. So they're just making up the fact that they're doing it to be seen to be doing something, which is a tacit admission that they want it to continue. Yeah. And to continue, as we've seen, at the expense of the exact kind of girls that their funded NGOs are using to market the benefits to random foreigners we don't know the motivations of.
So macabre, man.
Yeah, so enjoy funding the destruction of our country.
If you appreciated that episode from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Brokenomics series, this episode on 2023 in review. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Twitter at lotuseaters_com on Twitter. Thank you and goodbye.